Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Barry, Moss Pawn and Gun, and today we have another Gun Gripe episode for you. And people, there's been a little bit of this news floating around about New York, and it sounds like New York is at it again with their crazy gun control. As you know, New York is probably one of the, and the city of New York is what we're referring to.
Right, the city of New York.
Yeah, the city of New York is, at more of their draconian gun ban type stuff they're going at. Mm-hmm. In this case, they're actually going over into the realm of actual gun confiscation. Okay, there's been a little bit of rumors and news floating around about it a little bit. However, it's somewhat official now. I've actually got a copy of a letter that was sent out to a citizen of New York, and it actually lists the serial numbers, make, model, caliber, all of these specifics on the gun they own, and that, hey, at a certain amount of time, basically it's provision that within a certain amount of time that they either have to turn the firearm over to authorities or get rid of it. Basically, It cannot be in the state. Otherwise, by this date, we're taking it. So that's gun confiscation.
Right. It says you have to dispose of it with a registration certificate, and you immediately surrender your rifle and/or shotgun to your local police precinct, and notify this office of the invoice number. Now, they have a man's actual gun here with serial numbers because it's registered in New York.
Right. Well, the problem is that this is a perfect example of how gun registration leads to gun confiscation. Okay, and New York has always been one of those random places where they always just want to try to control everything. It's so draconian, all of the laws, all of the crap that's going into it. And one of the firearms that is on the list here, okay, they list an AR Industries semi-automatic AR-7. Okay, the magazine holds more than 5 rounds. So since it holds more than 5 rounds, they decide they want to confiscate it. This is a Henry survival rifle. This rifle has a 7-round magazine. So since it holds more than 5 rounds, they're calling this some kind of crazy assault weapon.
Right,
okay?
This thing is under control because it holds 2 more rounds than it's supposed to.
A 7-shot semi-automatic 22 is ultimately, under their guise or under their political eyes, this thing is an assault weapon. It's some deadly thing. I mean, remember, people, guns are inanimate objects. And to say that a certain firearm is more deadly than another one, it's just stupid because it just doesn't make sense.
But even to classify an AR-7 with this is ridiculous. It's redundant on the face of it.
Well, and here's the thing, Barry, is that not even this should be classified. I mean, this is just a Yugo, M92 PAP rifle with a 30-round magazine. 30 rounds is the standard capacity of this rifle. It's not like it's some magic baby killing tool. This is just a sporting semi-automatic rifle. It's a modern sporting rifle. This rifle has nothing to do with assaulting people. It's the person that actually, commits those type of atrocities. It has nothing to do with the firearm. And, this is the kind of stuff that, obviously they don't want you to have anywhere. But in New York, they wouldn't want you caught dead with this. An AK or something, or in the case of an AR-15, AR-15s are highly regulated. In many states, but in New York, I mean, this is a big no-no. They don't like this kind of stuff. And man, it's just crazy what those people have to put up with.
But it goes back, Eric. If you let them control this, eventually they'll get to this. And that's exactly what's happened in New York. They had control on this. Oh, well, I'll just go out and buy a little AR-7 for squirrel hunting and plinking at 10 cans. Now they want this.
That's right. And it is actually a part of their gun control law. Let me read through this email a little bit kind of as we go here. Let's see. The notice provides gun owners who possess firearms now prohibited under New York's unconstitutional SAFE Act. Okay, so you guys remember that we did the SAFE Act video where we talked about New York's SAFE Act. This is basically taking that whole thing one step further where they've said, okay, well, we know what you have. Remember in the other video where we mentioned that a lot of these gun owners' locations and addresses were actually put into public view on the website and everything. They made it to where, you can search for what gun owners are in your area. They do that through an extensive licensing system, and ultimately, apparently, according to this particular document, they're saying that it also has to do with what they know what you have, down to the serial number. And that's a big problem.
It is a problem.
So anytime you have registration, you're ultimately going to have confiscation. And I think that that is their ultimate goal. Many jurisdictions like theirs ultimately just want to take the guns. They don't care about knowing where they're at. They don't care who has what. They just want them. They want your guns.
Right. But what this all boils down to, folks, is the fact that they've already banned the AK, they've already banned the AR. Now they're going after your sporting rifle.
Your squirrel rifle.
This is designed as a survival gun, a sporting gun. This is not something you would assault a position with on a battlefield. This is a plinker, a 22.
It's a squirrel rifle. It's a survival rifle.
And with the magazine capacity to 5, that eliminates almost every magazine-fed 22 in the world.
And that's the plan. It's by design. I mean, they've done that on purpose. And just to recap a little bit, we're going to give you an idea what the SAFE Act is about. Let's see. The SAFE Act, which was passed by the state legislature and signed by the governor on the same day in January, has numerous draconian provisions, including but not limited to the outright ban of magazines holding over 10 rounds, the restriction on more than 7 rounds being loaded into a magazine. Now think about that for a minute. They're saying that they're going to restrict you on loading more than 7 rounds in a magazine. So what, is there going to be a private guard or a cop stationed in your home to make sure you didn't just strip more than 7 rounds in your magazine?
If you have a Marlin Model 60 with a tube mag that holds 14 rounds, you can't have more than 7 in it.
According to them, yes.
Okay.
So restriction on more than 7 rounds being loaded into a magazine. The limited exceptions do not include home defense. So essentially, if you're at the range plinking, they can probably, look by it. But if you're at home and you load, more than 7 rounds in your mag, you're committing a crime.
Well, now, if a gun will hold 14 rounds and you can only put 7 in it, later down the road, the thought police are going to get involved in this thing, and then they're going to have to restrict the mags to 7.
Right.
This is just steps. This is steps towards getting you a 22 single shot.
That's what, if they had their way, that's what they'd have. Or if they had their way, they'd have you with a sharp stick and a rock.
Right.
But they require mandatory background checks for ammunition. All right, requiring background checks for something that doesn't have a serial number. How smart is that?
Yeah.
The creation of a firearms registry for what the state considers assault weapons, which basically anything that's capable of firing a shot in their mind is probably an assault weapon. Okay, then a requirement for firearms permit holders to fill out a form to keep the state from publicly identifying them. So think about where that's worded. To keep the state from publicly identifying them. Wait a minute. To help the state publicly identify them.
Right.
So you have to read between the lines. It has nothing to do with, you're not signing this form of amenity that says, we won't tell everyone who you are. You're actually doing exactly the opposite. By playing into their hand and playing into their game, you're actually providing them with the information they need to, one, identify you as a firearms owner, and by playing their game, you're also going right into their giant system of registration, which of course we know leads to
confiscation.
So people read between the lines. I mean, this stuff is very common sense.
It's very common sense.
Yeah.
Now, Eric brought up the fact that serial numbers are not on ammunition boxes, but there are lot numbers on the box.
Don't tell them that.
There are lot numbers on the box, and I'm sure that when you buy a box of ammunition, they're going to have that beside your name.
Of course. Yeah. They're going to come up with something. I mean, there's, of course, in other gun gripes we talked about, people in other states that have to deal with a whole bunch of other crap. Like, for instance, in California, they had this whole wash over micro-stamping, some type of specialized firing pin or breech face in a pistol that when you fire it, the brass flows and at least some kind of microscopic serial number or stamp on the brass. I mean, do you realize how expensive it would be for the firearms industry to actually keep track and implement something like that?
The thing about that, Eric, they know it's impossible to implement that. That way, if they ever were strong-winded enough to get this passed, the ammunition companies would be out of business. There's no way you can meet that. Hey, going back to the smelter video, the last smelter closing in the United States, it was closed because there were so many restrictions put on it, there was 10 times the restrictions that were on it before.
Right.
So if they keep restricting and restricting and restricting, they're going to do away with the industry.
Well, and, ultimately that's their goal. I think in the giant scheme of things, when it comes to regulating something, if you can't completely outright ban something or just get rid of something, what are you going to do? You're going to regulate it out of existence.
Right.
And I think that in the giant scheme of things, that's what a lot of these companies, I say companies, the government might as well be some big corporation or company, but ultimately the government, if they really do want to get rid of something, they know that they can regulate it out of business. Now, the deal in New York with the SAFE Act, all right, and this whole thing with registration, this is an utter fiasco because it basically infringes on people's rights. I mean, for one, it's your right to own a firearm, and what part of, shall not be infringed do people not understand? Mm-hmm. This is a humongous abuse of power and a humongous overreach of what government, intervention should be. Mm-hmm. The government doesn't have the right to tell you what you can and can't own. I mean, it's basically they're trying to control commerce, essentially is what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
And because a firearm is an inheritedly deadly weapon, they want to obviously control it.
Yeah.
So,
well, folks, we just want to get you up to date on this and look it up yourself and read it, and it's shocking. And I hope that y'all check this out and post your comments, because we're loving to hear them. And just take it in heed and look it up and find out about it yourself.
Absolutely. Right. And, we always try to make sure we're taking care of our neighbors in other states. We do a lot of videos that involve California, that involve New York, more specifically the city of New York, not the state, because a lot of people in upstate are fed up, and a lot of the law enforcement in upstate has said, look, we're not enforcing this. We don't care what you say.
Right.
So at the end of the day, we all have to live together. We all have to get along, and some states have it worse than others. So in some of these videos, we like to try to, bring apart some of those views, and just to let people know, exactly where we stand on those issues.
Right.
And people, we really appreciate you watching the videos. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media websites that you'll see below. We got plenty of cool content. We've also got an exclusive members-only section of our new website. Be sure to check out the link here and become a member. There's a ton of cool exclusive content, interesting things you'll be able to check out. So people, we always appreciate the support. If you have any input on the SAFE Act, be sure to leave your comments below. We may revisit this video as this whole fiasco develops. Keep you in tune to what's going on.
Right. Well, we hope y'all enjoyed the video, and y'all tune in next time, okay?
Have a good one, people.
Have a good one.